Welcome to Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. It's a 2 for Tuesday, which means we're doing 2 streams today. Welcome to the second one, and boy howdy. Got a couple of fun clips to look at, including from one of my all-time favorite internet people, Beau of the Fifth Column. We had a viewer recently request that we look at some Beau, and he never fails to satisfy. Ended up sounding very different than how it was in my head. Anyway, he's a great commentator. But first, Rudy Giuliani admits to what may be more crime on air, and of course, George Santos. The more you dig, the more you find, and leave it to a civilian, somebody in this context who is not in politics, to ask the questions that ought to have been asked by the New York Democratic Party. So a lot of just fun clips. Let's get right to them. Ring of Fire recently did a vidya wherein they discuss Giuliani's on-air program, and he discussed the documents. Yes, the Trump stolen documents. Apparently, there was even less security with these than we thought. Here's Farron Cousins on Ring of Fire.
You know, one of my favorite things about Rudy Giuliani is that the more he talks, the worse he makes things for his clients, both current and former.
So true.
And this past weekend, during his WABC radio program, which I didn't even know he had, kind of seems like a bad thing. But Rudy Giuliani explained that Donald Trump, when Giuliani was working for him, of course, would frequently tell Rudy to just go ahead and take those top secret documents or people's private info, take it home with you and look over it.
Okay, so a big issue with Donald Trump was his mixing of personal business with political. There was a lot of ethical concerns, and among them was this figure, Rudy Giuliani. I want to remind you very quickly, before he goes into the details here, of what we're dealing with when we talk about Rudy Giuliani. He was one of the main people involved in the fake electors plot. It was his job in this scheme, as the January 6th committee revealed, to go around to the 7 states that they tried to get to overturn the election illegally, and coordinate with the GOP leaders there. So the state-level GOP in Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, in Georgia, in the 7 states where they tried to do this, they were working with Giuliani. What is his position in the government? No position. He had none at the time. Simply working for Donald Trump. That is a criminal act, what he did. We would like consequences for that, by the way. But let's look at him admitting to some more crime.
Here's what Giuliani had to say that, again, creates a lot of problems for Donald Trump. Here it is. Top secret files are very strange, he said. What concerns me, and this is because of politics, the total difference between Trump and Biden. Trump is going through a negotiation every president goes through. He took them and he put them in his home and he put them in a secure place. When I was his lawyer...
Hold on. Wait a minute. Point of contention here. This is not the documents thing. It's not a negotiation every president goes through. Can you imagine that? A private citizen, which is what a former president is. A private citizen has national security documents. The government calls him up and says, hi, we'd like to get those back. Private citizen goes, will I let you have them? I suppose I'd be willing to part with them if, say, you gave me, let's just say $50,000. Negotiation? There's no negotiation. assuming it was an accident that you took these documents, which in Biden's case it appears to be, because he contacted the National Archives to give them back when it was discovered that he had them by his own people. Trump did not do that. There's no negotiation to be had. It's bizarre that he would, first of all, even admit that there was any resistance at all on Trump's part. Ridiculous turn of phrase, but the juicy part, believe it or not, is coming up.
I mean, there was a period of time I was there like 10 straight days. I was vetting other people when he first became president and their tax returns. This is my training on top secret. I didn't take them out of Mar-a-Lago. He told me, oh, take them home with you. I'm not going to take Wilbur Ross's tax returns home with me. I could misplace them.
Okay, Jesus. We can't get through like 2 paragraphs with Giuliani without like a bunch of interruptions to say, just so you know, that's yet another thing. Why is Giuliani Trump's personal attorney at this point? Not the White House counsel, not any government position. Trump's personal attorney. Why is he vetting people? In what regard is he vetting them as Trump's personal attorney? For what business could he possibly have with these people? The answer is none. He had none. But Trump ran the country like a criminal organization. Got to be dealt with. Okay.
So
Farron has the same, it appears, same general reaction.
In addition to that being a very difficult thought process to follow, because he kind of jumps around from place to place to place, you're admitting that Trump did the thing that everybody's worried that he did, which was share classified information with people that do not have the clearance to see it.
Yes.
Now, if you're only talking about people's tax returns, then that's one level of a violation of privacy.
Is it, though? Okay, fair enough. It's not good.
Because even if you're Donald Trump's lawyer, you were not a part of the administration, so I don't know, legally speaking, if you're even allowed to receive another individual's tax return.
You have no right.
So right off the bat, even if it's only the tax returns, which you kind of make it sound like it's not, but even if it was only the tax returns, like take them home, okay, Wilbur Ross, you may have a good lawsuit on your hands. Maybe you need to reach out to Rudy and just, text him and just say, what the hell, dude? Because, yeah, that doesn't seem legal at all.
Oh, hey, that's a great reminder from a channel that's been doing this longer. I would appreciate likes. Certainly, it'll help me boost the old algorithm and grow this channel. And if you enjoy the content, do consider subscribing. Let's hear what Farron has to say, because I got comments to make.
And then, of course, we have the other issue, because he was talking about classified documents.
Here we go.
And he mentioned just take them home with you. So did Donald Trump, who did obviously have, clearance to view these documents, was he telling Rudy Giuliani, his personal lawyer, however, not a person with the clearance to see these things, was he telling this person to go ahead and take classified documents home? I mean, again, like that's one of the big concerns about Trump having the documents at Mar-a-Lago in the first place, Rudy, is that we were scared people who didn't have clearance would see them and that it would become a national security problem. And here you are suggesting that, it was a national security problem. All right, folks. Hell, he tried to get me to take him home.
I mean, there it is exactly. Barron Cousins, welcome to the No Notes Club. Yes, it was a massive, massive issue. The United States security with national documents, as we have seen, is already lackluster. It has trouble. It has trouble standing up and standing up to scrutiny, even with honest actors. Joe Biden, no matter what else you may think of him, and I do not have a high opinion of the man, Joe Biden did not appear to intentionally take these documents. Why? Because as soon as it was discovered, first of all, because he was vice president at the time, gunning to be president. He ran for this position multiple times. Joe Biden had documents from his days as vice president and contacted the federal government as soon as he knew he had them. That speaks of A, integrity on his part, and B, the problems with America in terms of actually holding on to our security documents. It is an entirely different story when the people running this show have no integrity, have no ethics. You get people like Donald Trump telling his personal attorney, here, take some sensitive information and just take it home with you. I didn't vote for Donald Trump to be president, but I happen to know nobody voted for Rudy Giuliani to have a position in the White House in that era. There's no reason he should have had his hands on the people's documents in any way, shape, or form. Bringing us to Trump having the documents after his presidency. What did he do with them? Was one of those incredibly lucky, by the way, real estate deals that happened after he left office that bailed him out of, for example, the old post office, a Washington building that he converted into a gaudy hotel. Was one of those deals, perhaps motivated by the buyer being friends with somebody who has those documents now? We don't know. And it's not a crazy question to ask when you consider how little these people are investigated. It leaves us in a situation where we have to speculate for the sake of our nation's security. Not a good place to be, man. The answer to this, as it is to so many other things, is to start holding the GOP accountable. Step one is to ensure that the Department of Justice knows that you see them and knows that you have an expectation of action. Let me show you why the Department of Justice thinks you don't care. Why the Department of Justice thinks you're not following this. Don Lemon did an interview with George Santos's ex-roommate. And in that interview, an incredibly enlightening sentence was said that I would like to share with you so we can discuss it. Let's look at that interview, which, by the way, is hilarious.
We're learning more about the lies New York Congressman George Santos told as a younger man about his family's wealth and his business success. His former roommate, Gregory Maury Parker, joins us now. And in full transparency, a little technical difficulty there. And so we're glad you're here and that you're able to hear us loud and clear. You good?
Yes, I am. Good morning, Don.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Listen, you knew Santos for a number of years, starting in 2013. How did you end up living in the same house?
So my lease in Astoria was up in Queens, and he was like, oh, well, the New York rental market is ridiculous. Come stay with me for, a month or two while we get everything, sorted out and try to find you a place. And I was like, oh, okay. So I took him up on it, moved in. It was definitely an interesting few months.
Well, explain that to us. What was he like back then? Why do you say it was interesting?
Well, he, I suppose the biggest thing that I took away from it was like just delusions of grandeur. Like he would just go to bars with, like rolls of $100 bills. And, 3 days later, he would have no money. or, you know, he would constantly be saying, oh, well, you know, I'm going to sell my phone. I'm going to sell my phone. Do you know anybody who wants to buy it? And, you know,
If look, no, no hate here. If you've ever lived a little bit, how do I say it? If you've ever had lived a little bit spare, let's say, belt's awful tight. You've had a couple of rough months, and that's standard for you. Everybody's had a friend like that. The I gotta sell my phone guy, and then 2 weeks later, they've got like a cheap ass $50 phone that they got from a pawn shop, somewhat reliable because it only kind of understands their SIM card. It doesn't really work on their network. Been there. Sympathetic to that. It's sort of what he does after this that is the issue.
I'm like, well, why are you selling it? And he's like, oh, well, don't worry about it. And it's just, things just started continuously spiraling and getting like kind of ridiculously crazy. You know, his mother was a housekeeper in Manhattan, and it just didn't seem feasible for him supposedly to come from all this generational wealth, if you will. And why are you doing the things that you're doing? It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, he had made allegations that he came from generational wealth, and you're saying that his mother was a housekeeper in the city, in Manhattan.
Yeah.
So I just want to, in fact, he's done so well. There we go. I just want to praise Don Lemon a little bit here. Also, because I won't get many opportunities in the man's career to praise Don Lemon. Every compliment is backhanded. So that guy who he's talking to is not media trained. And it's the nature of doing the kind of show Don Lemon's doing. It was not the habit for the longest time for anchors to clarify like Lemon just did. It's a small thing, but it's the sort of crack in the armor that the GOP loves to take advantage of. So what he just said, taken in isolation, that former roommate, it does sound nonsensical. He said generational wealth, mom was a housekeeper. What he meant to say was it doesn't make sense because he says he comes from generational wealth, and yet his mom is a housekeeper. Don Lemon just lampshaded that and said, like, oh, what you're saying here is a little off. Good. Because the strategy of the GOP is to use confusion so that the people who are on their side will say, I can't understand this, I'm just going to assume I'm right. And the people who are not on their side will say, I can't understand this, I'll wait for the next thing, the next huge scandal to get angry. So thank you, Don Lemon, for keeping it clear.
In Manhattan.
Yeah.
So people are going to wonder, and also, you know, you knew him through another name, right? The last name DeVolder.
Yes, I've always known him as Anthony DeVolder.
Yeah.
So we know he used to go by, he said he went by George DeVolder - Santos for a while. Interesting, this guy lived with him for a while. Only ever knew him by that other name, Anthony DeVolder. God, man.
Never known him as George Santos. I was actually quite surprised. I guess he went by his middle name and his mother's name. But yeah, no, I've always known him as Anthony DeVolder.
Mm-hmm. So listen, you know, people, Greg, are going to wonder why you're coming out. They're going to say, well, that's his side of the story. And do need to tell our viewers that we did reach out to George Santos' representatives, his lawyers, and we haven't heard back from them. Although we have been trying since this story started to get an interview with him. He has declined. His representatives have declined. And even his office in Washington. You say something wasn't adding up between the way that Santos talked about himself and the life that he led, right? His name, Anthony DeVolder, as you knew him, his wealth and what have you. What else doesn't add up? What else?
Well, just I kind of assumed that he had made up, about going to Baruch and NYU. But then I thought, well, maybe I was wrong, after the election. because I'm sure the DCCC, and the RNC would have, investigated him. And
right there. Right there. That is the primary issue that we have in. Let me take that back. Outside of the Department of Justice, outside of the actual written into law people whose job it is to hold people in line, when it comes to just the population, that's the main problem we have. The assumption that somebody would have taken care of it. The bystander syndrome. It's not that we're dumb. It's that we assume there is more competence going on behind the scenes than there actually is. This guy, he's not dumb. He thought, well, I don't think George Santos went to any of these things. Or excuse me, he knows him as Anthony DeVolder. I don't think Anthony went to these colleges. And then he saw this guy now going by George Santos out there saying that he went to these colleges, and he assumed that either the state GOP or the state Democrats would have chimed in and said something if that wasn't true. He assumed, in other words, that Santos would have seen consequences if it wasn't true. And when he didn't see consequences, he assumed it was true. Until later. Until it was too late. When it did come out. When somebody did get off their butt. And I believe it was local journalists, actually, that finally found this out. So, I'm assuming, if you're watching this show, just based on our reach, based on who tends to watch it, I'm assuming you do know that Donald Trump really did violate the law a whole lot. Problem is, the vast majority of the country doesn't follow this stuff at all. True story. I once had a close friend who asked me when I was ranting about Trump, is he a Democrat or a Republican? A lot of people who vote are that uninformed. When the vast majority of the country hears a bunch of people saying, Trump did crime, Trump did crime, he did crime, and then there's no charges filed, there's no consequences for that crime, they assume, oh, he must not have done it. It's that simple, the thought process. And it's not an unreasonable thought process to have. You just assume people are doing their jobs. But we have learned they're not. It means those of us that do follow it do need to make a habit of letting the Department of Justice know we see them. We're expecting results. We are in an unusually politically active time in the U.S. Let us, first of all, stay politically active. Assuming we win the battles we have to win, we could be so much better than we are, using the very techniques we're going to use to win these battles. But first things first, we need accountability for these crimes. Let's see if there is a little bit more to be had here.
Because I'm sure the DCCC, and the RNC would have, investigated him, and at least his opponent would have done some research. So I kind of thought, well, maybe I'm wrong, maybe this is just, the truth, and I was incorrect. But I mean, obviously, the truth has finally come out. And I don't understand. Did he go like one by one to everybody in his district and just literally pull the wool over their eyes? Like, how?
Okay, so he also mentions New York Democrats there. Or rather, he said the DCCC. Yeah, an utter failing on the part of the Democrats. Let's be clear about who the biggest failure is here. It's the Republicans, of course. But we've known now for some time what they are. We know they're not interested in truth. We know that McCarthy, for example, will happily work with George Santos. He doesn't care about the truth. He cares about having the majority in the House. That's it. So his instinct there to say, I would think at least his opponent would care. Yeah, we got a problem with New York Democrats, and we have to change the leadership of the New York Democrats. They are responsible for, right now, the U.S. House not being majority Democrat. It could have been. It was very close to being. Primarily, the criticism of them, first of all, they are center-right, New York Democrats. There is a highly corrupt party structure in New York for the Democrats. It comes from the Cuomo days, the Cuomo machine. And now it's running without Cuomo. And what is left over is something that cannot even use that corruption effectively. They ran their candidates on speaking out against crime, even though crime was an issue largely drummed up by Republicans as a talking point. Yes, there is crime to be dealt with around the country. No, it was not the problem that Republicans were saying it was. And most Democrats around the country chose to deal with reality. New York Democrats chose to go with the talking points of their opponents, just accept them, and pitch to the people the plans they were going to do to take care of them. Result is Democrats lost big time in New York. And we got guys like George Santos. They also spend so much of their time, so much of their effort hunting for progressives in the primaries in New York. That's how they spend if you donate to the New York Democrats. That is the way they're going to be spending that money is to fight progressives, not the other side. They'll fight the base of their side rather than actually take on the GOP. So this guy had a very reasonable reaction. We got to change Democrat leadership in New York for sure.
It's just flabbergasting.
I'm wondering if this was the end of, I guess it was a rocky relationship, and it started off well, and because this is, again, according to you, you believe that he stole a Burberry scarf from you and wore it when he gave a speech in D.C. on January of 2021. This is January 5th, 2021, one day before the Capitol attack. Now, CNN has not independently verified this claim. In the speech, Santos falsely claimed that the 2020 congressional election was stolen from him. Now, you say this is not, it's more than just a stolen scarf. This is bigger than that. Did he take other things, and why are you saying this is bigger than just a scarf?
Well, it just bothers me. I mean, he is one of the highest elected officials in the country. He is responsible for making the laws. And yes, I mean, I do miss my stone check Burberry scarf. But at the same time, it's why I feel like they're not focusing enough on the issues at hand. Where did all this money come from to finance the campaign? Why? The whole thing is just, it's quite bewildering to me. I mean, how he even got elected.
Absolutely true. Great questions asked by a person whose only qualifications are being the roommate of a former roommate of a representative. Great questions. Should be commended. He did a great job. Yes, indeed, he is making the laws. And where did that money come from? Santos is being investigated now. I'm not confident that the Department of Justice finding information about him doing a crime will in any way mean that charges are filed. The standard line we hear is, well, you have to have an airtight case. If you're going to file charges, the case has to be absolutely certain. And that is only true, I find, when it comes to politicians, when it comes to rich people. They can be pretty sure when it comes to you or me. They can say, more likely than not, when it comes to you or me. When it comes to politicians, no. Not only do they have to be sure, they have to be sure that you know and are expecting results. Links in the description if you're interested in putting pressure on them. Well, one of my favorite internet people is named Beau of the Fifth Column. Yes, I like his beard. Yes, I like his very relaxing manner of speaking. But mostly what I like is that he is sharp as a tack. And his way of breaking down what is wrong with various issues is it's an art. Here he is talking about, he got a viewer question, and he's talking about what Fox does very intentionally, which is just asking questions. Have a listen.
Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Beau again. So
Beau.
today we are going to talk about the news. And we're going to talk about the process of just asking questions. And we're going to talk about a misconception that a lot of people have about a particular news outlet and how that misconception can actually illustrate why it's not really an outlet you should be consuming. It's not a secret that I'm not a fan of Fox News. That's not like, something I hide. I'm very open about that. But I have this message. You've been pushing against Fox a lot in your videos lately. The only reason your blank masters have you attacking them is because Fox is the only outlet willing to report on things the mainstream media wants to ignore. They're the only outlet informing real patriots, all caps. Okay.
That I'm fairly sure he doesn't talk about this. That concept annoys me. I hear that so much from the far right. Like, real patriots only get their information from X or Y. What is a real patriot in their estimation? I truly don't understand that. It's not a rhetorical question. I don't know what they're picturing, I guess.
My masters, huh? Yeah, it's totally unsurprising that the person who sent me a message trying to defend Fox News managed to work in a slur. That's not a surprise.
Going to come back to that in a moment.
Okay, so the reason I don't like Fox is because they are very economical with the truth. More importantly, they just ask questions. They go through a process, and it's called just asking questions. And the purpose of doing this is to ask questions in a way that leads the viewer to believe something that the outlet can't just come out and say, because it's just overtly false.
If you saw our video on the differences between misinformation, malinformation, and disinformation, Fox News, you might remember, made an appearance. What Fox does is called malinformation. And it's exactly what Beau just said. They will take true facts and present them in isolation with the intention of deceiving their audience. That is what Fox does. They ought to have any licenses they possess revoked for that reason, because they do it intentionally.
And they get called out on it. So what they do is they ask questions in a leading manner to get somebody to the right conclusion. Are you aware of anybody that does that on Fox News? Can you think of why they would do that? Do you know what they look like? Does he have brown hair? Does he wear a bow tie? Does his voice go up and he always looks confused? That's why. And this is how they get you to believe things that aren't true. They ask questions of the viewer. If they were a news outlet, they should be informing, not asking questions.
Boom.
Right? Okay. So here's the part of this.
Got to be said, he's very likely to wind up in the No Notes Club. I'm going to let him power through this, and then I have a few additions.
That is really important because I see it a lot with Fox. They report on things the mainstream media won't report on. Sure, okay. I mean, that makes sense. But do me a favor real quick. See what the highest rated cable TV shows are.
Yep.
They're on Fox, right? Fox is the mainstream media genius. That's just something else they've lied to you about. They've tricked you with.
And
they
it's
are not
maddening.
informing some band of plucky upstart patriots. They are the mainstream media. You are not special for watching Fox News. That's not a thing. That's what they try to appeal to. They try to cast that image. But they are the mainstream media. They are the big outlet. Watching Fox doesn't make you special. It makes you average. Below average, really.
Painful. Yes, true. They are indeed the mainstream media. Also, those numbers should be terrifying. You want to know why Trump can do all the insane things he did in office and still get 77 million votes? Fox News is why. Average people can watch Fox News and tell themselves they have gotten informed for the day because they watched Tucker Carlson or Sean Hannity or any other propaganda piece. They're walking around out there making decisions and reacting to the world based on Republican propaganda. And that propaganda is getting crazier and crazier. Do remember, there's the nightmare caravans right before an election, and then after, the caravans disappear. There's the war on Christmas, which was and is simply a way to distract people by focusing on folks that say Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas. Because how dare they recognize that not everybody has the same religion. There's people out there that consider themselves informed and yet only listen to Fox News. Incidentally, in surveys, the people who only watch Fox are consistently ranked below in terms of information they possess, in terms of knowledge of what's going on, ranked below people that say they don't watch any news at all. That is how bad this network is.
So when you're watching Fox, just keep that in mind. And look for them to make definitive statements, things that a news outlet would typically do. This is what happened. Who, what, when, where, right?
Boom.
And then when you get to the why, do they really tell you the why? Or do they ask questions? Which happens? And who's the biggest offender? And are you picturing somebody right now? Because it's what they always do. I don't like Fox because they routinely paint a false narrative. Something that is objectively false. We're not talking about the way every outlet, every commentator, myself included, we all have spin. We all have our own bias that comes through our reporting, no matter how hard we try to be objective. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about things that are easily debunked, things that are easily disproven. And they try to cast that image. They don't come out and say the falsehood, but they present information in a selective manner that leads people to the wrong conclusion.
So he has another portion that he goes into in the last bit of this clip here. I've left the link to Beau of the Fifth Column in the description. I definitely recommend you have a listen. If you're not already a fan of his, definitely worth listening to. What he just said there is the very definition of this. Malinformation. Based on fact, but used out of context to mislead, harm, or manipulate. Sometimes they go as far as dipping into disinformation, but their main course, their bread and butter, is malinformation. The problem that we have people in the country who are making decisions based off of the malinformation presented by Fox News. It's dangerous, in fact, because they don't live in reality with us. They live in a fantasy world. There's nothing wrong with dressing up like your favorite anime character and going to Comic-Con, because you know it's make-believe. It's a bit of fun. If, however, you start carrying around a real sword and chopping people up because you believe you're living in Bleach, that's a problem. Fox News is a problem because they're trying to convince right-wingers that the crazy X-Files version of their craziest conspiracy theories is the real world. Why we have people trying to break into FBI headquarters with a nail gun and kill people. It is why we have a group trying to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer and kill her. Why we have somebody kicking in Nancy Pelosi's door and beating her husband in the head with a hammer. Why we have terrorism as a serious concern in this country, and why we are constantly putting out fires started by domestic terrorists. I was saying that metaphorically, but also quite literally sometimes. We're past the point of being able to deal or being able to give Fox a pass on this. In fact, I would argue that we're going to ram up with the need to deal with them as part of solving the greater problem. The problem must first start by getting addressed by the Department of Justice in terms of the terrorism issues. Because, as stated earlier, people not seeing consequences for actions that are being called stochastic terrorism, for example, or just Trump in general, for any of the actions that are called criminal that he did. People not seeing consequence for that is a major part of this. It's why they are able to believe Fox News and why they only will listen to them. They need to see, first and foremost, that they have been malinformed. When Trump gets the handcuffs on him, they need to turn to another network to explain it to them because they understand that Fox does not inform them. But down the line, actual consequences for Fox News, whether that is held in civil court or criminal court, needs to be addressed. In the show notes, you have contacts for the DOJ. I definitely recommend you use them. Tell them that you want to see charges filed against Donald Trump. If you're in one of the 5 states listed, you have a special opportunity because you can get state investigations started in the fake electors scheme. And I would warn you that if we rely only upon federal investigations to seek charges for Trump in these matters, probably a lot of the GOP in your state who were involved with trying to nullify your vote, in other words, do a coup, will not be part of that investigation. So you benefit greatly by having your state separately investigate this. I recommend you tell them, you tell your attorney general that that's what you want done. Because remember, they think you're George Santos' roommate. They think you're waiting for them to tell you what's right, what's wrong, or whether or not they should have done something. And yet we always find out they let these people get away. So don't wait for them to tell you. Tell them you're watching. Mary says, speaking of George Santos, I don't understand. In any job, a lie on the application is cause for immediate dismissal. Why can't a person/people from George Santos' district sue him for false representation? It's a great question. We don't have the ability to recall a politician for lying, to my knowledge, in the Constitution. I know you can. I believe in New York. Well, let me think. Yeah, 2/3 vote of the House of Representatives could get him kicked out, and it's not inconceivable that that would happen. I think it's more likely that he's going to go of his own volition after negotiating with the FBI about campaign finance charges. In other words, in lieu of actually getting a prison sentence, he might simply agree to no longer be the representative for Long Island, or whatever district that was in Long Island. But as far as his actual constituents suing him, I don't know enough about New York law that's to tell you for sure it's not possible, but my understanding is currently, my current understanding is that it's simply not an ability possessed by the constituents in that area. It's unfortunate, certainly worth considering making that so. Fortunately, the reality is the only way the constituents of George Santos have to react to his lies is to wait for the next election and vote for somebody else. However, the Department of Justice can and should investigate him, and his constituents, just like you can contact them and tell them that that's what they expect him to do. Speaking of, I really want to bring to everybody's attention, first of all, thank you for joining me on this 2 for Tuesday. Love doing the show. Love talking to you guys. I would like to encourage people to actually take action, and I would like those of you who are the most confident to show other people how it's done. If you do write your representative about anything, if you do write the DOJ, let me know in the comments. I do something called the Wicked Citizen of the Day, and I just want to highlight the people that are out there making their voices heard and thereby positively affecting America. Here is our first ever Citizen of the Day. Spear 5102 contacted their representative and their governor. They signed the petitions for citizen take action. That, by the way, is how to get big money out of politics. If you're sick of corporate donors deciding who gets to rule us, Citizens Take Action is the group to get in touch with. Signed up to volunteer for Citizens Take Action. Also posted that video at the time, that was the big money out of politics video, to Facebook and sent it to family and friends. You don't have to do all of that to be the Citizen of the Day. I sure do appreciate Spear 5102. But what I'd like to see is people contacting their representatives, to make that a habit amongst progressives. Contacting the DOJ as well. If you do that, let me know in the let me know in the comments, and I'd love to make you the next Citizen of the Day. Well, this has been a delightful 2 for Tuesday. Thank you for joining me. If you did appreciate the stream, I would appreciate a like and maybe even a subscribe if you're feeling squirrely. Why not? I will see you tomorrow. This is WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. See you next time.
You can tell that I make it look easy. It's a cheat code. It's a free throw. If it's so illegal, you can tell that I make it look easy. It's a cheat code. It's a free throw. If it's so illegal, yeah.
The game is strategic, I'm bobbing and weaving. Don't argue with demons, okay? Okay. Ain't nothing between us, vacation on Venus. I mean it, I'm somewhere you ain't, okay? I feel like I'm Jordan when I turn the mic on a dangerous cycle. I make you a rival, I pray for the title. We making the finals, I pray we don't spiral, I pray we don't. I wrote out the vision, been focusing winning. Don't try to guess me, you know that we driven. Nothing get past me, you know we ain't slipping. The team is on 10, man, I promise we different. Scotty and Dennis, we killing opponents. This ain't what you want, no way. Yeah, I know it ain't fair, we just taking it there. Hope it's coming through clear.
You can tell that I make it look easy. It's a cheat code. It's a free throw. If it's so illegal, you can tell that I make it look easy. It's a cheat code. It's a free throw. If it's so illegal, yeah, you can tell that I